Today's episode is sponsored by Learning Blade. Middle school is the ideal time for career exploration. With Learning Blade, you can easily integrate STEM and career awareness concepts into your classroom. Find out if this resource is free in your state at learningblade.com. Thanks, Learning Blade. Hey, is this thing on? Are we recording? Can I get a tech person? Oh, for the love of ed tech. Joining me today is Kelly Gaier Evans, director of the Ohio STEM Learning Network. And I'm excited for this conversation just because I think that you'll bring an interesting perspective to the STEM conversation. So, hey, Kelly.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here today and to share about the work the network and everybody associated with the network does across the state.
Yes. Yeah, we've been chatting that the network is just great in all of these connections of people doing wonderful things in education. So, to start us off, can you just talk a little bit about how you got into education and what led you down that path?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like many people, it's not a straightforward path. So, my degree was in political science. I was very interested in going to law school and pursuing like juvenile court justice. I had done work
Oh,
in like
wow.
internships at prosecutor's office and was really, really interested in that. And so, I had an attorney friend who recommended, it would be great to get some experience in schools if that's the path that you want to go. So after my undergrad, I signed up for Teach for America and clicked
Oh,
send
did you
me
really?
anywhere, and ended up in the rural Mississippi Delta on the Arkansas side of the
Wow.
river, about a half hour on a dirt road from the Mississippi River. Um,
Wow.
Expected it to be very similar to Ohio, very naively, uh, thinking I know rural Ohio,
Yeah.
and clearly went in with many misconceptions. And I think I learned more than any of my students, if I'm going to be
Wow.
honest, right? Just about America, about the South, about the education system, and got hooked, honestly, on education and the opportunities and the challenges, and stayed inside education after that.
Wow. So how long do you do Teach for America?
It's a 2 year commitment. It's a 2 year,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you at the same school for the full 2 years or do they shift you?
For the same, yeah, I was at the same school both years,
Okay.
and one of the things, as I reflect back on the experience, I have things that, life lessons that stay with you, and things that you struggle with, right? Like I struggle with, I moved into the community and then left, and one of the challenges, right, is how do you keep, we know how much community means to students, to a school system, right? And so like I look at one of my peers that joined me who was recruited from the region, right? And she still lives on the other side of the river in Mississippi, but doing work in education. And so, there were some big lessons learned, and things that like I struggle with, right? Moving into a community and then leaving after 2 years because that's not where my community was. There wasn't a lot to keep me there, right?
Yeah.
But I do very much respect things like, as my kids were getting close to graduating from, for those that pursued higher education as they were getting ready to graduate, like my program director reached out and asked for like recommendations of folks that they might be able to recruit to go into education there in the region, right? Because we know that makes a
Oh,
difference.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so fascinated because I have always been curious about Teach Across America, but I've never known anyone that actually did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so cool.
it just changes. It changes you when you're in the classroom, right? I think we
Yeah.
all have perceptions because everybody experiences the education system. Unlike, so everyone has thoughts and feelings and opinions about education because everybody has gone through as a student, right?
Yeah.
um,
Yes. But it's
it's a
a lot different when
lens
you're
from
on the
the other.
other side of
Yes,
things. Yes.
yes.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Okay, so then after Teach for America, did you have to like do like a certification since did you
Yeah, I did
graduate with poli
certification.
sci?
I did, yeah. So
Okay,
I,
okay.
alongside the program, worked through the certification in adding education.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
No, that's a good question.
So
It's been a while since I've thought about it,
yeah,
actually.
no. Well, and I'm curious, how'd you end up at
So,
Battelle as the director
yeah.
of
So
the
when I
STEM?
decided to move back to Ohio, which is where my family is from, I'm from a small rural community in Northwest Ohio, more west than north, um, a little north of Dayton. Um, but I decided to move back because that's where my family was, and um, was having conversations with some of my previous like internships, etc. And so I had done in university, had done some interning at the state senate and at a state agency. So I went and worked for the state's Department of Higher Education,
Oh,
and
wow.
worked alongside folks doing teacher prep, program certification, and things along that nature, and learned another lens, right, from the kind of mixing of the education and policy angle. And I stayed there for a few years and then felt so disconnected from the classroom, right? So at that point, I had considered, what is my next path? Am I going to go back to the classroom and maybe go into administration? Was what I was having lots of conversations with. Different mentors in my life. And one of those mentors offered me a position here at Battelle on the Battelle education team, looking at different ways. So this would have been like circa 2012, looking for
Okay.
opportunities to increase access to computer science education. And so I said
Oh.
yes. And started doing the
Yeah.
network, and spent time, came under different funding. And so worked around college ready literacy and math, and eventually was able to secure funding to do more computer science work here, across the network, and really built my understanding around computer science. I taught high school students geometry and algebra. And so as I was building this background, because most people, um, you know, didn't have access to computer science when I was going through school. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's still a large group of students that don't have access or are not participating in computer science. So I was able to kind of merge my love for education and policy together in that role.
Yeah.
And do some advocacy work here in the state of Ohio, culminating in leading a state committee for computer science and putting together some recommendations for Ohio. Um, and with that work and with some of my other advocacy work in the organization, was asked to then step into the work to lead the network.
What is Patel's role in OSLN and how did the connection begin?
So in 2004, 2005, leadership at Battelle was in conversations with leadership at Ohio State University and with Columbus City Schools, trying to find ways to prepare students for the types of careers here at Battelle. Battelle's a science and research organization. We do a lot of contract research for organizations across the world and manage national laboratories for across the country for the federal government. And so we need to be able to prepare students for careers in science and computer science and engineering, careers that don't exist today. And
Mhm.
so we were looking at how do we, but we're set up as a nonprofit. Science and research organization. And as a
Okay.
part of Battelle's founder's will, education is built in, right? How do we do the greatest good for humanity, and including how do we prepare students, right, to be able to be those creators and
Yeah.
researchers. And so we were in these conversations and launched Ohio's very first STEM school, the Metro School, here in
Okay.
Columbus. It's about 5 minutes from where I'm located
Oh,
right
wow.
now. Actually, I might need to redo my math. Metro just opened um, a new building, and they
Oh,
just moved in a few days
cool.
ago. So it might be a few minutes further from me today. But so that work really launched Battelle's interest in STEM education specifically as a core part of our um, philanthropy, honestly. And so
Yeah.
a few years later, as the state was looking at how do we replicate what's happening at that school across the state, the Ohio STEM Learning Network was founded as a public-private partnership with the state of Ohio, to replicate systems of school systems in STEM education. So some of that was like Metro, where it was a school
Okay.
kind of created independently as a brand new school, with school wide STEM practices. And some of those schools were existing schools, looking become STEM schools, and adopting some of those STEM practices. So that was the founding of the network. And I think often today we still, have folks who think, okay, the network works on creating those models of STEM, and we do still do that. But I think one of the shifts that has happened over time is as we had more and more models of school-wide systems for STEM education, we were able to pull those leaders together and to really begin distilling down what does high quality STEM education look like,
Like,
and create a quality model for the state of Ohio in partnership with the Department of Education and Workforce, but create that quality model of STEM education. And so now, when we look at the work of the network, our vision is how do we expand quality STEM education to every community because we know how critical it is for the success of our students, but also Ohio's economic success.
yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Why do you think that the connection between Battelle and the OSLN is important?
Yeah, I would say Battelle serves as the backbone organization of a collective impact model. The network is not Battelle, it's not the state. It is the it is all of the organizations and the people that are doing the work, right? So it's
Yeah.
our K-12 schools across the state of Ohio, those that serve as model STEM schools, and those that are getting started, right? And excited. It's the individuals within those schools, the teachers that are showing, are bringing STEM practice to their students, are finding ways to bring that authentic learning into the classroom for their kids to have their you know idea of what they can be expanded, to have opportunities to connect their learning to something that matters to them, something happening inside their community, solving a problem in their community, right? So it's our teachers, it's our school coaches, our instructional coaches, our principals, all of those educators within the school system that are looking for opportunities to expand access to STEM inside their classrooms for their students. It's our industry partners, which are connecting with our schools, which are connecting with our state agencies and with other organizations like Battelle to identify how do we support, how do we translate the types of skills that kids need to be successful in these future careers to what they're learning now in the classroom, right? It's our higher education partners. So our network is composed of so many different players, organizations, and individuals, and Battelle serves as a backbone organization of that, right?
Mhm.
We uh, continue to nurture those relationships, right? To build those partnerships between a school system and community partners, industry partners. How do we spark the interest for partners who aren't currently at the table, right? Or don't know how to engage, or spark interest for educators who know this is important, but are looking for how to do this, right? So
Mhm.
our goal is to make those connections, to bring together those community of practices. Um, right? We believe, in our work as the backbone organization and working with different state agencies and different other organizations, we're able to see what some of those needs are and try to identify how do we connect those that are doing that work to our schools so that we can begin building that pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So for example, Ohio Excels is one of the partners we love learning from, right? And they created a briefing earlier, I guess last year in 2024 now, uh, forecasting the jobs for 2031, and 66% of those jobs require some sort of post-secondary education after high school, which is a gap from the number of individuals we're producing each year, right? Of 11,
Yeah.
right? And so when you start like breaking that down and looking at what are the fastest growing jobs there, STEM is a key component, right? We have AI and machine learning specialists, fintech, financial technology engineers, data analysts, big data specialists, robotics engineers, and on and on and on. So we know that STEM careers are a huge part of that pipeline. And so when we think about how do we support Ohio in preparing the myriad of professionals that we need to keep industry here and to continue to expand and to have the entrepreneurs, right, that are creating
Yeah.
new opportunities in their communities. Um, we believe that having someone to be the backbone organization, pulling those people together, is important. Um, and so we look at the like a continuum of supports, right, from igniting that interest all the way to building and strengthening STEM practice within your classroom, within your school. And last year alone, we were able to reach 695 schools, which meant reaching over 375,000 students. Um, and
Wow.
we being the collective we, right? The
Yes.
you previously talked to Sam Cruz, who serves as one of our regional hubs. The network includes 7 regional hubs, which are different, all bring us different lenses as well, from university partners serving as hubs to K-12 partners serving as hubs to community partners. And so we get a whole bunch of different perspectives too, which bring like, contribute to that kind of wealth of how do we solve this problem.
Teachers, you can now earn contact hours toward grad credit for listening to the podcast.
Visit fortheloveofedtech.org for more information.
So, how is OSLN helping educators adapt to changes in STEM education? Because we do know that over time it's evolved and taken different lenses, and the approach has shifted. So,
Yeah. Well, there's so many different types of changes too,
yeah.
right? There's changes when we think about like what are the STEM workforce needs. There are changes when it comes to the types of modern technologies that are being used. There's changes in what we've learned about effective strategies around STEM education. Um, so
Yeah.
we work on how do we share best practices and lessons learned through communities of practice, through professional learning, through just uh, different types of modalities. And I think maybe it would make sense to share a few examples if that
Yeah.
works
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, one example, right, in the past few years, we've all encountered ChatGPT and
Oh,
AI,
yes.
right? And so that's
Yes.
just changed dramatically, the future,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so we know that foundational computer science knowledge becomes even more important for students, right? Understanding how does AI work, um, understanding big data, understanding some basics of like, computer sciences, being able to create a like here's what I want the computer to be able to do, and
Too.
being
Mhm.
able to like record that to create that algorithm that which tells a computer like here's it's combining our idea, right, and computing power to be able to have a more effective solution, right? And
Yeah.
so um, OSLN has been working on how do we support and grow access to computer science, which includes how do we demystify what it is,
Mhm.
right? Because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of confusion out there around like what is computer literacy, what does it mean to be able to use technology versus what is computer science, and understanding how how big data is used in artificial intelligence, how programming is used to create an app, right? And so we've been doing a lot of work to advocate, to demystify computer science, but also as we can expand interest, providing professional learning opportunities at the K-5 level. How do you integrate this into your content area? What does computational thinking look like
Yeah.
in K-5,
Yeah.
right? How do you connect what you're already doing in your English classroom, in your math classroom, to computational thinking and computer science? So you're building kids' confidence and
Mhm.
like they're not growing up with this like lack of understanding of how all of the technology surrounding them from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep works, right? It's not magic.
Yeah.
So we work to create opportunities for our educators to learn how to bring that into the classroom all the way from kindergarten through high school. We offer various leadership communities of practice, and we work to bring in you know various elements like computer science in there to begin demystifying it, and having leaders share best practices, right? That we're not all recreating the wheel here, but building upon one another. So that's one
Yeah.
example.
Okay. Which
Um,
is great. Yeah.
we also just launched what I thought served as a great second example. Jobs Ohio identified that we have a need for approximately like 37,000 advanced manufacturing technicians each year. But we're only graduating a little over, I think it's somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 technicians each year from both post-secondary degree and technician programs. And
Wow.
so they're looking at how do we engage more students? How do we get more students in that pathway? And so one of the things Patel Education is leveraging is our experience, the network's experience in convening communities of practice, right? To look at how do we build a community of practice of schools, either strengthening their manufacturing pathways or adding new pathways, while connecting to key partners around the state, because each of those partners hold different parts of the solution, right? We know we need to
Yeah.
find ways to get more students in the pipeline. How do we spark interest, right? What are the different uh, industry credentials that our industries need, right? And how do we build those into the programs, right? So that's one of the things that
Yeah.
we're just kicking off,
Oh, cool.
and excited to do to solve a problem that the state of Ohio has.
Yeah. Which, and man, that I feel like will continue to just grow
Yeah, yeah,
that the whole,
absolutely.
yeah, advanced manufacturing. Um, I know too that you do a lot of professional development in your role.
One of the key components are how are we pulling educators together and supporting them with best practices.
Okay. So, when it comes to professional development for teachers in STEM, what do you think are the most important components to have so that teachers are successful?
Yeah. So we've done a lot of work as a Battelle education team. So Battelle Education includes, like, we manage the Ohio STEM Learning Network. We also manage a sister network in Tennessee, the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network, and a national network, STEMX. And as a larger Battelle Education team, we've done a lot of work reading the research around what makes for effective professional development, and looking at where are our current programs and how do we make sure that they are aligned to these practices, which research tells us work, right?
Yeah.
And so um, we look at all of our programs, and we know that we're designing some programs to be those deep impact programs, meaning we are taking a community of teachers and or leaders through as a
Yeah.
cohort, right? And it's going to be a year-long experience, right? And we know some programs, professional development, are designed to be those kind of entry programs to get them started and excited, but aren't like, you can't take someone that's not yet excited about STEM education and get them into a year-long program. So
Yeah.
we've looked at all of those elements, and when we're looking at those deeper impact programs, we're looking at how do we embed those throughout the entire program. And some of our early entry programs, we look at different elements and still based on research practices, but maybe we can't do the length. So for example, the elements that we focus on, we have 8, content focused, right?
Okay.
In STEM education, that means we focus on transdisciplinary curriculum development. How are we teaching content, not in a silo, not teaching math in one room, science in another room, English in another room, right? But really thinking about how are we integrating that content so kids are learning how is it applied in the real world, right?
Yeah.
It's looking at the engineering design process. How do we encounter a problem and break it down, take time to understand what is the problem asking, do the research, and then go through the design cycle of, okay, I'm going to try this, collect data, does it work? No, I need to make some modifications, going back maybe to the research phase, right?
Yeah.
Making those changes, testing it again, right? So things like that. Transdisciplinary, when we're talking about content focused in STEM education, it's that transdisciplinary instruction, it's the engineering design process, it's project or problem based learning, right? So that's the first element, content focused. We also
Uh-huh.
look at how do we incorporate active learning. So engaging the teachers directly in both the designing and trying out of teaching strategies that maybe they've not used before. So giving them an opportunity to learn the same way that we're asking them to then teach,
Teach.
right? We want you to experience it because you learn in a different way if you're experiencing it. So active learning. We make sure all of our experiences support collaboration. We want our teachers to build community outside of just whoever's facilitating the program, to learn from one another, to build a community that they can reach back on. You know, like I'm in the classroom right now and I met so and so. I want to like see what she's doing, or he's doing. By working collaboratively, we know that we can build a community that changed not only what's happening in my classroom, but what's happening in the classroom of everybody in that community. So that's a key component for us. Um, so I think another key part is offering feedback and reflection, right? So building in
Oh.
time for our teachers to think about their current practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to receive input and make changes to their practice, right?
Yeah.
You have to take time to pause and to give that reflection time, right? And then I think there's also a key element of sustained duration. We don't learn everything immediately. It takes processing time. You have to have time to practice, to implement. When things go wrong, to have support, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing goes right the first time. We always have
Yeah.
human challenges, right?
Yes.
And so you have to like, I think in the strongest professional development opportunities, there's enough of a sustained duration to be able to try and to get feedback and to have that reflection and to have that encouragement, and to have that coaching and feedback as well.
Yeah. Which are all so important. I mean, like, why is professional development important for the OSLN?
So OSLN focuses on our teachers, professional development for our teachers and our leaders, because we know that is who is going to change our kids' lives, right? Our students' lives. Working with a teacher and changing the way that they approach education, teaching, and learning doesn't
Mhm.
only impact that teacher, it impacts the 30 to 100 kids that they see every day this year and
Yeah.
next year and the following year And so we focus on how do we invest in our educators because of that, because they don't only impact themselves, they impact hundreds of students, thousands of students in their lifetime. That's why we focus on professional development.
I love that. Well, thank you, Kelly, so much for such a great conversation. And we will have links to the OSLN and Battelle and stuff that our listeners can find on our website along with this episode. So thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you found our discussion interesting and insightful. Don't forget to check out the show notes on our website, where you'll find more information about today's guest, resources we mentioned, and information on earning contact hours for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with your network, and check us out at fortheloveofedtech.org. This podcast is produced by SOIDA, the Southwestern Ohio Instructional Technology Association, in partnership with Think TV and CET, the local PBS stations in Dayton and Cincinnati. Until next time, keep exploring new ways to empower your students through tech, and we'll catch you in the next episode.